The crystalline ambassadorial ship of the Galactic hegemony descended through Earth's atmosphere, trailing prismatic light that scattered across the morning sky above Geneva. Onlookers paused their commutes, lifting faces to watch the alien vessel that resembled a faceted diamond catching fire in the sunrise. Few showed fear. Humanity had been dealing with the Empire for nearly 20 years now. This was merely another diplomatic visit, albeit with unscheduled urgency. High Admiral Zelvorax adjusted his ceremonial armor as the ship settled onto the pristine landing pad of the United Earth Government's diplomatic plaza. 9 feet of scaled magnificence, he had personally accepted the surrender of 32 species across his 3-century career. Humans would be 33. Unremarkable bipeds with a curious obsession for art and inefficient democratic governance. Their extinction would barely register in the Empire's historical archives. Final preparations, Admiral, his adjutant whispered, presenting the formal war declaration tablet, an ornate device of precious metals and quantum circuitry that would transmit the pronouncements simultaneously to every UEG outpost upon activation. Remember, Zelvorax instructed his delegation of 12 senior officers, expect weeping, perhaps prostration. Their behavioral profile indicates a species prone to emotional displays. Do not show disgust if they beg. It diminishes the dignity of conquest. The gangway extended with a soft pneumatic hiss. The delegation descended, energy weapons ceremonially displayed, each one capable of vaporizing a small building. The plaza was prepared with appropriate deference. An honor guard of humans in formal blue uniforms, the UEG Security Council awaiting at a precisely measured diplomatic distance. Curious, Zelvorax noted. No visible anxiety. Perhaps humans concealed fear better than the Empire's psychologists had assessed. High Admiral, UEG President Okonkwo greeted him with a perfect formal bow. Exactly the depth required for acknowledging a superior power without surrendering dignity. We weren't expecting your presence. The hegemony typically sends junior diplomats for scheduled meetings. This is not a scheduled meeting, human. Zelvorax permitted himself a small display of teeth, what his species considered a smile, what most other species correctly interpreted as predatory satisfaction. I come bearing the final word of Emperor Sanzalax the Inevitable. He activated the declaration tablet, which rose from his scaled hands to hover at eye level. It projected a holographic display of the imperial seal, rotating majestically. The Galactic hegemony, having observed humanity's recent technological advancements and territorial expansions, finds your species' development incompatible with galactic stability. You have been assessed and found wanting in cultural sophistication, genetic potential, and philosophical value. Zelvorax paused, expecting gasps or protests. The humans remained impassive, watching with unnervingly steady eyes. Therefore, he continued, slightly louder, the Emperor declares formal war upon Earth and all its colonies. You have 1 standard galactic week to prepare your surrender terms, after which extinction protocols will commence. The Empire grants this mercy in recognition of your species' minor contributions to galactic cuisine and musical theory. The tablet pulsed once, sending the declaration across space to every human settlement. The deed was done. In the Empire's 12,000-year history, this moment typically featured wailing, desperate counteroffers, occasionally ritual suicide. President Okonkwo simply nodded, accepted the now inert tablet with proper protocol, and said, "Thank you for delivering this message personally, Admiral. Earth acknowledges receipt." That was all. No counter-declaration, no pleas for negotiation. As the delegation was escorted back to their vessel with perfect diplomatic courtesy, Zelvorax felt an unfamiliar sensation rippling along his dorsal scales. It might, had he been willing to acknowledge it, have been identified as unease. Imperial dreadnought Indomitable Conquest materialized at the edge of the hegemony's Grand Assembly Zone, its kilometer-long hull gleaming under the light of 3 suns. 10,000 warships gathered in precise geometric formations, their energy signatures creating a luminous tapestry visible from 12 systems away. The Emperor had ordered this spectacle of military might broadcast across all galactic channels, a calculated demonstration of the fate awaiting Earth. Fleet Admiral Kraz Tavik stood on the Obsidian command deck, watching tactical displays as the final battle groups arrived through hyperspace apertures. The largest mobilization in 3 centuries. Admiral, purred his executive officer, Sub-Commander Vex, humanity must be in absolute terror. What is their response? Kraz Tavik inquired, expecting reports of frantic diplomatic outreach or desperate military preparations. Vex's expression shifted, mandibles clicking in confusion. That's the peculiar thing, Admiral. There isn't one. Explain. Earth has gone silent. Sir, completely silent. 6 hours after receiving our declaration, their orbital platforms began shutting down in sequence. Communication satellites, defense stations, monitoring arrays, all dark. Kraz Tavik's dorsal spine stiffened. Ground communications ceased entirely 12 hours ago. Their planetary network continues functioning internally, but no signals are being broadcast beyond their atmosphere. The Admiral studied the tactical projection showing Earth's solar system. This behavior aligned with no known strategic doctrine. Fear would generate chaotic communications, pleas for mercy, hasty alliance negotiations with other species. Defiance would produce increased military chatter, propaganda, perhaps symbolic strikes against imperial outposts. Silence was incomprehensible. Their military bases, showing minimal activity. Routine patrol patterns continue. No fleet mobilization detected. Civilian population. This is strangest of all, sir. Vex transferred images to the main display. Our long-range surveillance shows humans continuing normal behaviors. They attend their workplaces. Children play in recreation areas. Commercial centers remain operational. The images showed humans walking through parks, entering transportation hubs, gathering in eating establishments, all with casual normality. It's as if, Vex continued, they haven't noticed they're about to be annihilated. Kraz Tavik felt a sensation he hadn't experienced since his cadet days. Uncertainty. Deploy the shadow of intent, he ordered. Full stealth protocols. I want close observation of Earth's preparations. 3 days later, the specialized surveillance vessel Shadow of Intent maintained high orbit over Earth, its advanced cloaking technology rendering it undetectable to conventional sensors. Commander Urala, the Empire's foremost expert in xenopsychological warfare, watched the data streams with growing discomfort. Magnify that population center, she instructed the sensor operator, pointing to the eastern coastline of the continent humans called North America. The visual feed zoomed to street level, showing humans commuting, conversing, consuming food, utterly ordinary behaviors, except for one detail that made Urala's blood run cold. Are they smiling? The sensor operator adjusted the feed, capturing high-resolution images of human faces. Indeed, many displayed the expression humans use to indicate pleasure or satisfaction. Urala's 4 hearts beat arrhythmically. In her 60 years studying enemy species during war declarations, she had cataloged 27 distinct fear responses across the sentient spectrum. She had documented denial, rage, bargaining, and submission in precise taxonomies. She had never documented serene acceptance, or worse, what appeared to be quiet confidence. Establish communication with Fleet Command, she ordered. Priority Alpha. Unable to comply, Commander, the communications officer replied. Our transmitters they're not responding. How is that possible? Run diagnostics. All systems report normal function, but the officer froze, staring at his console. Commander, according to our positioning system, we're no longer in Earth orbit. Absurd. Visual confirmation. The main screen shifted to external cameras. Where Earth should have been, there was only empty space. That's impossible. Urala whispered. The last transmission from the Shadow of Intent, received as a fragmented burst by Imperial command, contained only 8 words. They're not panicking. They're smiling. We err. Then nothing. Prince Draxthar stood on the command bridge of the Imperial flagship Inevitable Conquest, his royal carapace gleaming under the ambient light. Being the Emperor's nephew had fast-tracked his military career, but this mission would prove his worth beyond nepotism. Conquering Earth would be his coronation as a true Imperial leader. Status report on the advance fleet, he commanded, voice resonating through the bridge. The Vanguard has reached the outer boundary of Sol system, Your Highness, reported First Officer Krell. Scout vessels have been deployed to assess Earth's defensive positions. Excellent. How soon until we receive their findings? Krell hesitated. That's unclear, Your Highness. We've lost contact with all scout vessels. Draxthar's compound eyes shifted, focusing sharply on his officer. All of them. How many? 7, Your Highness. Each ceased communication approximately 3 minutes after crossing the orbit of the gas giant they call Neptune. Equipment failure. Simultaneous failure across 7 different vessel classes seems improbable, Your Highness. Draxthar clicked his mandibles in irritation. Deploy the stealth destroyers Whisper of Death and Shadow Claw. They're equipped with our most advanced cloaking technology. Yes, Your Highness. Hours passed. The bridge crew grew increasingly tense as the silence from the stealth destroyers stretched beyond expected parameters. This is unacceptable, Draxthar finally snapped. Order the fleet to advance to Neptune's orbit. We'll uncover whatever primitive trap the humans have set. The vast armada moved forward in precise formation, weapon systems charged, shields at maximum power. As they approached Neptune, sensors remained clear of any human vessels or defense platforms. Perhaps they've retreated to their homeworld, suggested Krell. A final stand. The theory seemed plausible until the heavy cruiser Subjugator, positioned at the formation's edge, simply vanished from tactical displays. Report, Draxthar demanded. The Subjugator is gone, Your Highness, the sensor officer stammered. No explosion, no debris field, no distress signal. Before Draxthar could respond, another alert sounded. The battleship Eternal Dominance had disappeared from the starboard flank. Then the light frigate Merciless from the rear guard. Full stop. Defense pattern Omega, Draxthar ordered, his exoskeleton flushing pale with stress hormones. What in the Emperor's name is happening? The tactical officer frantically worked his console. Sensors detect. Nothing, Your Highness. Whatever is attacking us isn't registering on any frequency. That's impossible. Deploy gravitational sensors. The gravitational scan revealed distortions, hundreds of them, moving through the fleet like predators through a school of fish. Magnify visual scanners, maximum resolution, Draxthar ordered, his voice dropping to a whisper. The main view screen shifted, showing apparently empty space. The prince was about to demand another scan when a junior officer spoke up. Your Highness, the stars behind us are moving. Every eye turned to the view screen. Indeed, pinpoints of light that should have been fixed stars were shifting position, slowly, methodically. Those aren't stars, Krell breathed. They're engine exhausts, viewed directly from behind. As if responding to being noticed, one of the stars changed course, growing larger as it approached. The image resolved into a vessel unlike any in Imperial records, a ship painted in light-absorbing black, its hull design eliminating radar reflection, its propulsion system somehow masked except for the pinpoint thermal signature of its exhaust port. How many? Draxthar asked, already knowing the answer would destroy any hope of victory. The sensor officer's voice shook. Thousands, Your Highness. They're everywhere. They've been here all along. Around the Imperial fleet, space itself seemed to warp as vessel after vessel shed their perfect camouflage, revealing an armada that had been invisible against the void. Humanity's silent hunters, finally showing themselves to their prey. Activate the synchronized battle network, Prince Draxthar commanded as humanity's black ships materialized around the Imperial fleet. His voice carried the edge of one who refuses to acknowledge impending defeat. Full tactical integration across all vessels. The command center hummed as the Empire's ultimate technological advantage engaged, a neural network connecting all Imperial vessels into a single coordinated organism. Developed over centuries and tested in 100 conquests, the network had never failed. SBN at full capacity, Your Highness, reported the systems officer. All ships neurally synchronized. Draxthar's confidence returned. Even facing humanity's surprising stealth technology, the network's tactical superiority remained insurmountable. 3,000 Imperial warships thinking and acting as one could not be defeated by mere invisibility. Target the human vessels and fire on my mark, he ordered, mandibles clicking with anticipated satisfaction. Before he could give the command, alarms blared across the bridge. Your Highness, the tactical officer's exoskeleton paled. The destroyer Inevitable Vengeance is firing on our support vessels. Impossible. Check your readings. Confirmed, Your Highness. The Vengeance has destroyed 2 of our own light cruisers. The battleship Emperor's Wrath is now targeting our flank protectors. Around the Imperial fleet, chaos erupted as ship after ship turned weapons against their companions. Command codes scrambled. Navigation systems directed vessels into collision courses. The impenetrable synchronized battle network, the pinnacle of Imperial technology, had become their greatest vulnerability. Disconnect from the network, Draxthar shouted. All ships, emergency protocols. The disconnect codes aren't working, Your Highness. Something is overriding our... The main view screen flickered and resolved into an image that froze every being on the bridge. A human face. A woman with silver-streaked dark hair pulled back severely, eyes calm behind archaic spectacles, wearing what appeared to be a simple black uniform with minimal insignia. Prince Draxthar, she said conversationally, as if they were meeting at a diplomatic function. I'm Admiral Helena Chen, Earth Defense Force. I hope you'll forgive our delayed response to your declaration. How are you accessing our secure systems? Draxthar demanded, rage barely contained. Ah, that. The human smiled slightly. We've been busy implementing Quantum Whisper Protocol while your empire prepared its theatrical fleet assembly. Your communications encryption is built on tripartite quantum algorithms, quite impressive for its time. She tilted her head, almost apologetic. We've been using 17-layer quantum encoding since before we contacted your species. Your battle network has been compromised since the moment you activated it. On secondary screens, Draxthar watched Imperial dreadnoughts, each representing trillions in resources and thousands of lives, systematically destroying each other under human control. This is barbaric, he hissed. Interesting perspective from an empire that declared our extinction. Admiral Chen replied, her voice remaining level. But perhaps we can find a more civilized resolution. Your uncle, the Emperor, should be receiving the similar communication momentarily. I suggest you stand down remaining weapons and prepare for diplomatic discussions. Humans don't dictate terms to the Empire, Draxthar snarled. Actually, Chen responded, glancing down as if checking notes, we already are. Your ships are currently following our navigational commands, and your weapons systems have been locked. This isn't a negotiation, Prince Draxthar. It's a courtesy notification. The view screen split to show the Imperial fleet reforming into perfect concentric circles, a formation impossible to achieve without precise coordination. We didn't want war, Chen said, her image beginning to fade. But we prepared for it nonetheless. As the transmission ended, Draxthar realized the devastating truth. Earth hadn't built better ships. They had weaponized mathematics itself. On the Imperial throne world of Xandoria, Grand Minister Vex Talus strode through the Hydroponic Production Facility 9, conducting his weekly inspection. The facility, One of 300 identical structures provided essential nutrition for 60 million citizens in the capital megaplex. Production rates are optimal, Minister, reported Facility Director Merzik. 20% above projected yields this cycle. Excellent. Vex Talus nodded approvingly. The Emperor will be pleased that our efficiency initiatives have succeeded. Much credit goes to Chief Engineer Sora Williams, the director added. Her modifications to the nutrient recycling systems have revolutionized our approach. Vex Talus regarded the human female who had joined them, wearing the gray uniform of technical specialists. One of thousands of foreign experts who had sought employment in the Empire after first contact, bringing primitive but occasionally innovative perspectives. You honor the Empire with your service, Vex Talus said formally. The honor is mine, Minister, Williams replied with perfect imperial etiquette, lowering her eyes appropriately. As the inspection concluded, Williams returned to her workstation, entered a 16-digit code into her console, and continued routine maintenance. Nothing in her demeanor suggested that she had just activated compounds in the nutrient solution that would render 60 million Imperial citizens temporarily lethargic, not toxic, just sufficiently slowed in their reactions to ensure minimal resistance in the coming hours. Similar scenes played out across the Empire. On the military coordination moon of Drazkur, Transportation Logistics Officer Hideo Tanaka, married 8 years to a prominent Imperial family daughter, entered a scheduling adjustment that rerouted 70% of military reinforcements into recursive patterns, ensuring they would arrive at emergency deployment zones days too late. In the communications hub orbiting the Imperial homeworld, technical advisor Michael Okafor initiated a routine systems update that subtly corrupted the encryption protocols for all government transmissions while appearing to enhance them. At the Imperial Palace itself, Defense Systems Engineer Rachel Goldman performed standard maintenance on automated security measures, secretly installing dormancy triggers set to activate at precisely 300 Imperial Standard Time. Throughout the sprawling empire, humans who had integrated themselves into Imperial society over 15 years, cultural consultants, technical experts, academic liaisons, even those who had married locals and raised half-Imperial children, simultaneously executed their long-dormant directives. The Empire had deployed warships. Earth had deployed people. In the Imperial Palace's Grand Throne Room, Emperor Xanzilax, the Inevitable, received increasingly disturbing reports from across his domain. Inexplicable system failures on 17 core worlds. Your Radiance, reported the Security Minister. Communications disruptions in all military quadrants. Automated defenses powering down for maintenance protocols that no one authorized. How is this possible? The Emperor demanded, his legendary composure fracturing. Unknown, Your Radiance. Our best technicians here. The palace lighting flickered momentarily, an unprecedented occurrence in a facility with 12 redundant power systems. Where is Kavash? The Emperor asked suddenly, referring to his most trusted advisor of 8 years, a charismatic refugee from a species supposedly exterminated by a supernova. Kavash's strategic brilliance had helped expand Imperial territory by 17%. I am here, Your Radiance, came a familiar voice from the throne room entrance. Kavash approached, his characteristic measured stride unchanged. Yet something about him seemed different. The guards raised weapons instinctively before the Emperor waved them down. What is happening to my empire? Xanzilax demanded. A paradigm shift, Your Radiance. Kavash stopped at the precise formal distance. Then, astonishingly, he reached up to his own face. The guards moved forward as Kavash appeared to peel his skin away. But what emerged was not gore, but another face entirely. Human features replaced the familiar visage as advanced holographic camouflage technology deactivated. Captain David Chen, Earth Intelligence Service, the human said calmly. Earth's ambassador requests an emergency audience. The Imperial Guards found their weapons mysteriously disabled. The Emperor, who had conquered 1,000 worlds through overwhelming force, discovered too late the flaw in his strategy. Earth had conquered his empire through infiltration, patience, and devastating competence. Kavir huddled with his resistance cell in the abandoned mineral processing center on Draconis II, a mining world that had been under imperial rule for 6 generations. 32 draconians, scaled, serpentine beings with remarkable engineering aptitude, gathered around a makeshift communication array, their forked tongues flicking nervously. "The Empire will trace this transmission," warned Sithvar, their security specialist. "We'll have minutes at most before enforcers arrive." "We've survived worse," Kavir replied, adjusting the receiver. For decades, they had maintained this shadow resistance, sabotaging equipment, smuggling dissidents off-world, preserving their cultural heritage in secret archives. Small victories against an overwhelming oppressor. The array had been detecting unusual burst transmissions for days, encrypted signals unlike Imperial protocols. Finally, a pattern emerged that matched old resistance frequencies. The display flickered to life. Kavir expected another resistance cell, perhaps news of another failed uprising on some distant world. Instead, the screen filled with an image of a human female in a simple dark uniform. "People of the occupied worlds," she began without preamble. "I am Admiral Helena Chen of the Earth Defense Force. Today is your Independence Day." The Draconians exchanged confused glances. Humans were a primitive species that had only achieved faster-than-light travel within the last century. What could they possibly? "Transmission packages are being sent to resistance groups on all Imperial-controlled worlds," Admiral Chen continued. "These contain schematics for disabling Imperial control systems, access codes for weapons caches, and tactical plans tailored to your specific occupation scenarios." As if synchronized to her words, the resistance cell's data systems began downloading massive information packets. Sithvar's eyes widened as she reviewed the incoming data. "This is impossible," she whispered. "These are Imperial military codes, command protocols, security overrides." For 15 years, Admiral Chen explained, Earth has been mapping the Empire's weaknesses, not just for our defense, but as liberation gifts to all subjugated species. The Empire declared war on humanity. We are declaring freedom for all. The screen split to show images from across the galaxy, Imperial communication centers going dark, security systems failing, automated defense grids powering down. Not random failures, but a precisely orchestrated cascade. "The Imperial fleet that was sent to destroy Earth has been neutralized," Chen continued. "Their homeworld's defenses are currently compromised. For the next 12 hours, the Empire will be unable to coordinate an effective response to simultaneous uprisings." Kavir stared in disbelief as detailed tactical plans appeared on their secondary screens, perfectly adapted to Draconis II's specific occupation profile, identifying Imperial weak points, security patrol schedules, and optimal targets. "How could they know all this?" Sithvar breathed. "We didn't face the Empire alone," Chen answered, as if hearing the question. "Every cultural exchange program, every diplomatic mission, every trade delegation Earth participated in became an opportunity to connect with resistance movements across the galaxy. You gave us the information. We simply analyzed, organized, and returned it to you at the optimal moment." The transmission continued with specific instructions, but Kavir was already mobilizing his people. Throughout his life, he had dreamed of liberation, but never truly believed it possible. The Empire was too vast, too powerful. Yet in the next 12 hours, Kavir watched in awe as the seemingly invincible galactic hegemony unraveled. On 57 planets simultaneously, resistance movements executed precisely coordinated operations. Imperial commanders rushed to suppress these uprisings only to find their shipboard systems compromised, their weapons disabled, their communications severed. What had begun as Earth defending itself had transformed into a galaxy-wide revolution, with a simple but devastating truth at its core. Earth hadn't just prepared for war. They had prepared to end the Empire itself. The silence hadn't been fear. It had been the held breath before a galaxy-changing blow. Emperor Xanzilax the Inevitable, sovereign of 10,000 stars, conqueror of the 7 spiral arms, last of the 300-year Zulax dynasty, stood with his hands bound before him. Not with crude physical restraints, his captors had instead used a sophisticated neural inhibitor that permitted movement but prevented aggressive action. The room itself defied his expectations. After his capture and transport, he had anticipated a grand tribunal chamber, perhaps a primitive execution arena filled with vengeful humans celebrating their victory. Instead, he found himself in a simple conference room. Modest illumination, a table of polished wood, 6 human figures seated in a semicircle. "I demand the rights of a captured sovereign under the Galactic Conventions," Xanzilax stated, his voice still carrying the resonance of imperial command despite his circumstances. "Those same conventions you suspended when declaring extinction protocols against Earth?" asked a silver-haired woman he recognized as Admiral Helena Chen. Her voice carried no malice, merely historical observation. The Emperor's 4-chambered heart beat erratically. He had expected gloating, perhaps torture. This calm questioning was more unsettling. "Why have you brought me here?" he demanded. "If my execution is your intent, proceed with it. The Empire will avenge me 1,000-fold." A dark-skinned man with close-cropped hair and ceremonial sash, evidently their political leader, spoke next. "Your empire is currently experiencing what we call a fundamental restructuring, Emperor Xanzilax. 57 of your subjugated worlds have declared independence in the past 12 hours. Your fleet is disabled. Your palace is occupied by representatives of 6 formerly enslaved species. Temporary insurrections. The Emperor dismissed. The Empire has weathered rebellions before. Not like this one," said a younger woman wearing what appeared to be scientific insignia. "Your centralized control systems have been comprehensively compromised. Your reserve fleets are following navigational protocols that will keep them occupied for several days. Your communication network has been reconfigured to broadcast evidence of imperial atrocities to all worlds simultaneously." The Emperor studied their faces, searching for weakness, for the primitive bloodlust he expected from a species that had achieved such an unexpected victory. "Why?" he finally asked. "You could have destroyed us. Your infiltrators could have assassinated me years ago. Your ships could have bombarded our homeworld once our defenses were compromised. Why this elaborate strategy?" Admiral Chen sipped from a cup before answering. "Because we aren't you." The words landed with devastating simplicity. "Annihilation was never our objective," explained the political leader, President Okonko. The Emperor now recalled. "Our strategic simulations predicted 17 million casualties if we responded to your declaration with conventional warfare. With our approach, the current death toll stands at 8,312, mostly from Imperial forces firing on each other in confusion." The Emperor's head swam with implications. "You designed a war to minimize casualties. We designed a response appropriate to the threat. Corrected a military figure with ceremonial decorations. The Empire threatened extinction. We answered with precision. But how?" The question escaped before imperial dignity could suppress it. "How did a minor species achieve this level of strategic preparation? We've conquered civilizations thousands of years more advanced than yours. You declared war expecting us to respond in kind, with brutality and desperation," President Okonko explained. "But humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology or even our strategy. It's our ability to imagine better ways to win." The Emperor looked from face to face, finally recognizing what disturbed him about these humans. It wasn't anger or vengeance or even triumph he saw in their expressions. It was something far more unsettling. Compassion mixed with resolution. The implacable determination of beings who had calculated the exact force required. No more, no less. To neutralize a threat while preserving as much life as possible. With horrifying clarity, he realized these humans could have been far worse enemies than he could comprehend. One standard galactic year after the Empire's dissolution, representatives from 217 formerly Imperial worlds gathered in the Grand Concourse on Xandoria. The Imperial Palace, once a monument to domination, had been transformed into the headquarters of the newly formed Galactic Confederation. Xanthar, the Emperor's estranged sister who had secretly supported resistance movements for decades, stood at the podium addressing the assembled dignitaries. The irony was not lost on anyone. The imperial bloodline that had ruled through force now led through reconciliation. The transition has not been without challenges, she acknowledged, her scaled features catching the light. Centuries of imperial rule cannot be undone in a single revolution. But today we celebrate a remarkable milestone. At her gesture, the vast doors at the end of the hall slowly opened to reveal a singular human figure, Admiral Helena Chen, walking alone and unarmed into what had once been the heart of humanity's greatest enemy. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Many had expected Earth to claim leadership of the new galactic order. Instead, humans had declined all offered positions of authority, insisting on equal representation for all species. Earth had sent only observers to the Constitutional Convention, offering advice when asked, but never imposing their will. Admiral Chen comes to us today, not as conqueror, but as teacher, Xanthar announced. Earth has established the Strategic Silence Academy and invites all member worlds to send their brightest minds. Chen reached the podium and activated a holographic display. The assembled dignitaries gasped collectively as the seemingly empty space behind her shimmered and revealed 5,000 stealth vessels that had been present in the atmosphere all along, each now piloted by non-humans from recently liberated worlds. These graduates, Chen explained, represent the first class of the Academy. They have mastered not just Earth's technologies, but our philosophies of conflict and resolution. A draconian officer stepped forward, her scales gleaming under the ceremonial lights. We were taught that power means instilling fear, she said. Earth showed us something different. That true strength lies in restraint, in precision, in knowing exactly how much force is necessary, and no more. Chen nodded appreciatively before addressing the assembly. The Empire spent 12,000 years perfecting the art of conquest. Earth had 20 years to perfect the art of resistance. We didn't succeed because our technology was superior or our species more intelligent. We succeeded because necessity forced us to approach conflict differently. She gestured to the graduation class standing at perfect attention. These officers have not just learned stealth technology or quantum encryption. They've learned to question conventional thinking, to find strength in adaptation rather than domination. Around the Confederation, new diplomatic protocols were already emerging. When negotiations grew tense, someone inevitably counseled, "Remember Earth." It became shorthand for measured response, for preparation over posturing, for effectiveness over intimidation. Xanthar concluded the ceremony with words that would be inscribed in the Confederation Charter. The Empire taught us that power comes from being feared. Earth taught us something more valuable. Power comes from being underestimated, patience mistaken for weakness, preparation confused with inaction. As the assembly dispersed, representatives from dozens of species approached Chen with philosophical questions rather than requests for weapons technology. How had Earth maintained secrecy with so many operatives? How had they coordinated their silent strategy across such vast distances? How had they preserved their ethical framework while infiltrating an enemy? The galaxy was learning Earth's most valuable lesson. True power speaks not through grand declarations of war, but through the deadly effectiveness of silence followed by precise, inevitable action. In diplomatic chambers throughout the new Confederation, negotiators studied humanity's approach like scholar priests examining sacred texts. They had witnessed firsthand how a seemingly minor species had toppled an empire not through overwhelming force, but through patience, precision, and the strategic power of silence.